So I'm just going to show how I chopped up these two cords to make a hybrid between the 360 cord and the cord purchased from Amazon. So this guy was about $8. This guy was about $5 at the Goodwill, at the thrift store. So what I'm going to use is a couple items to pry the cable open, some heavy duty cutters, some strippers, needle nose, razor. Also, guess I purchased some liquid electrical tape, and then the heat shrink wraps of various sizes, just to be as thorough as possible. I'm also going to go one step further and actually solder the wires together just to create a really strong connection, since the wires are so tiny. So these guys on Amazon, you just search for Xbox component cable, and there's two that come up. One says silver plated, one says bulk packaging. I've tried both. I've checked the resistance on both, and they're about the same. It's usually about 3 ohms. As far as I know, that means the higher the ohms is more resistance, which is a poor signal. And then when you ohm this guy out, it actually has less than 1 ohm, like 0.8 or something, as far as the connection between there and there. And it's also shielded, wrapped with the it's wrapped with silver lining inside, and then it also has the sheath, but we'll see that when we cut it open. And this guy has none. So that is the issue. So the first thing is to pop this guy off. And that's where these two things come in. Let me zoom in here. So we just insert like a butter knife, or I got this kit off of Amazon as well. I think it was like $30 or $40 for the entire kit. It's pretty cool. A lot of redundant stuff in there though, but I really just wanted these things. I figured, what the heck, spend a couple more bucks and get the rest. So you just pop them in the sides right there, and then you can kind of pry downwards. There's a couple, you can't really see it, but inside the core there's a couple latches inside this spot that you have to get around. But once you open it, it just kind of pops. So you can see the two little nubs right there, and then on that side as well. And then this guy slides right off. So I just pulled the cord back a ways and give myself enough cord to work with, and just chop it. Remove the top. This part, say for some other purpose, and we'll maybe try to take those ends off later to use them. So we have this part. Now for the 360 one. Again, I don't want to cut too much cord, but I was thinking there might be some use for this in the future. So I don't want to cut it too close. I want to leave enough to maybe experiment with that later on to get this switch. That would be if you wanted to hook the yellow wire up, but for this case I'm not going to hook the yellow wire up inside the cord to the Xbox end, because it would require soldering on the pins and it would be tedious. I picked up some circuit riding glue to see if it would actually help, but it's still tedious, so I'm not going to do it. I'll just leave the yellow wire The yellow video wire is going to be a dead end. It's not going to be hooked up anything, so it won't bother anything. I'll just leave it hanging. You may want to solder it up, but I've tried it. There's no signal loss or interference that I can see it, but I think without this switch though, and not being able to shut it off, it would probably be better just to leave it unhooked. So anyway, I'll take this guy back just a couple inches here. Chop that off, put it in the save bin. So I'll take my razor. Alright, let's actually open this guy up first to take a look inside. So it has this back part right here. It wraps around, so you kind of have to get in there and pry it open. You can use this tool, or just kind of force it open with your needle nose. I just kind of stuck this in there, and then it kind of unfolds, and then just do the same thing for the other side. So if you just kind of unfold it, and then this whole top part, you just got to kind of pry it out. Stick something in the end right there and set that off to the side. Then you can take this end and just push it right in the middle. Slide the whole thing out. I already checked all the pins and everything to see what was what. If you were so inclined, the last pin on the longer side right there, the last pin would be the yellow that you can solder to or glue something to, but you can see how tedious it would be, so I'm going to skip it. And you can see there's no shielding in this guy. That's kind of hard to see, but there's no shielding. It's just straight through the jacket there. So I'll slice this guy open and take the wires out. Give myself enough length to work with. So the wires in here are really cheap, so you gotta be careful, because you'll slice right through them. I usually just make that little line and then pull from the back gently. Make sure you don't pull it off the pins, because those solders are really cheap as well. If you pull it slow enough, it should come off without any problem. Just gonna trim it so I'm not slicing all the way through the cord, I'm just slicing about halfway through, and then I'm using the wires to actually pull it apart. So, because these wires are so thin, you can slice right through them. But this way, it seems like I can just pull them right out. So I give myself a nice length to work with. I won't be using that much wire, but it's always nice to have a little bit to kind of wrap and twist and make a better connection. That's why I'm also going to use this soldering gun, because putting more wire together and then throw some solder on it, it seems to make a pretty solid connection. So we got that guy ready, we got that part ready. So now same sort of process here. Usually I line this up so we know this guy is going to go back this far. So we kind of look at the look at the length requirement here, so you can try to make it as precise as possible. If not, you can always use electrical tape or some heat shrink to repair it if you don't get it quite right and it's not as clean as you'd like it to be. But that's really all the wire you need. It's a very tight fit, but you could even cut it back a little further because there's enough room inside of this connection piece right here that you can shove the wire and kind of turn it in once it's out of the sheathing. But the main thing we want to make sure is that we cut at least the jacketing down so it wraps through this part when we wrap it, and it'll give that grounding to the signal. If we pull the sheathing out and wrap it in there, that's the whole point of this. So we'll take about that much right there, and we could always trim some off. And we just slice that around and trim it up and get those wires exposed and then pull them back. So the other part where you need the needle nose is this doesn't exactly fit. It's kind of hard to fit in there, and when you try to push it down. So you want to get this on first before you do the cutting, because then you won't be able to get it on. But I just used the needle nose and then just shoved them in there and kind of gave it a few twists. Kind of wiggle it around to open that spot up. I suppose you can use a heat gun to make it a little more receptive to that bigger wire, but I think this just stretches it out enough. Then you can slide it right there. This one doesn't have that core on it. Some of them don't. The last cord I made, I left the core on. Not sure it'd make a huge difference. I think it's more of the shielding that makes the difference. So you can kind of see the shielding in there. So let's measure this off. So we'll give ourselves about that much. We'll just slice into that. You want to be careful too, because you don't want to cut completely through the shielding. So I usually just score it and then kind of bend it, and the plastic will tear itself the rest of the way. If you get a really sharp razor and just score it, you should be able to just work it through slowly so you can preserve as much of that shielding as you can. Each wire is wrapped, so it provides enough grounding, I guess, if you do cut through most of the shielding. But so these wires are actually far more substantial. So I kind of scored it on the end, and same thing, just kind of tearing it out. Hopefully it'll pop off the end in a nice circle where I already scored it. Just a little piece to trim off. So there we go, we preserved most of the shielding, so we can just take that and unwrap it. I noticed the shielding is different in the cords, but the bottom line is that you want to keep as much of it intact. So we have this outer part right here that we can kind of just take back, kind of squish it down, maybe like peeling a banana. And then we have all the wires that are also encased in some grounding wire. And there is a grounding wire in here. The black one is a ground in here, so we're going to take that one. You want to leave this one especially long. Remember to leave the black wire long because that's the grounding. We're going to strip it back and wrap it around this whole casing all the way down, and then make the connection right there so it has proper grounding. It should help with the signal. So the next part is just cleaning out these wires, pulling all the individual shielding back. I don't really think you need this white part in the middle. There's also another grounding wire right there. So I just cut this part off. The cable gets kind of tight. Then you have the 5 wires. And these ones, you can just grab them and kind of pull the shielding back. And it kind of, I don't know if we can see that, it just kind of smooshes down and you can expose the wire. So you just repeat that with all the wires. So you got your green, your blue, yellow, which is not going to be used. And we have red, white for our sound, and pink for the video, which is the red on the video. So these two conveniently have black marks in them to show that they're for the sound. And then the pink, a little bit lighter. I don't know if you can really tell on this, but the pink one's a little bit lighter, so those are for videos. And then we have these ones where they match up. We have green is green, of course. Then we have the ground is black. The other cords might be different, but you kind of want to look at it. You can actually, check for continuity. Use your voltmeter. I'm sure you can set the continuity, the one right there with the little ohm sign, and then there's a speaker next to it on mine. And then you just check the ends and follow them. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but so I don't know if you can hear the beep, but it also shows the ohms ticking off and showing that those wires are connected. So you can check from one end to the other, make sure they're connected, and we'll check that at the end to make sure our work, to double check our work. But the yellow actually on this one is I believe it's the red from the sound, and the white would also be the sound, and then you have the red, the RGB. So we have red, blue, and green for video, and then we have the ground. So these wires are really thin and flimsy, so you got to be careful. I tried stripping them and they just kept breaking, so I'm actually going to use a trusty Bic lighter just to take the ends off. Just kind of the old school method of lighting it and kind of stripping it back with your fingers. And yeah, that'll be part 2.